In this episode, I'm discussing how to navigate difficult circumstances. I share what I've been doing as I navigate grief and loss in real time. Hello, and welcome to the Beautiful Reflections podcast. I'm your host, Katherine Johnson, a certified professional coach, mentor, writer, and speaker. I help professional women gain the clarity, confidence, and courage to pursue their bigger purpose and vision, so that they can have fulfillment and thrive in their careers. I believe there is beauty in our voices, beauty in our stories, and beauty in our journeys. There is power in community, connection, and deep, meaningful conversation, which is why me and my guests are here to share our stories, experiences, lessons, and learning to inspire you as you walk the path and step into your next level. We go deep, sharing beautiful reflections of what this personal growth journey looks like in real, living color. This journey of pursuing our purpose and vision as we continue to evolve. It is my mission to empower you to believe in your power, to embrace your own uniqueness, and to be the best version of you. I want to see you thrive purposefully. Now on to the episode for today. Hello, and welcome to the Beautiful Reflections podcast. I'm your host, Katherine Johnson. Today, I'm talking about how to navigate difficult circumstances. And I'm really going to share with you a very personal story, a very real-time story of what I've been doing as I navigate grief and loss. It's been a few weeks since I've recorded a podcast episode, and I like to do the episodes when I'm feeling in high energy and really feeling a sense of excitement. And over the last few weeks or so, it's been nothing close to that. In fact, it's been very sad, very heavy, and a full spectrum of emotions. I found out, my cat started to experience some issues in May. And over the last few months or so, we've been going back and forth to the vet, to the emergency room for tests, for blood work, for all kinds of workups and analysis to figure out what's been going on with her. And in the meantime, while we've been waiting, her health has been deteriorating. So I've been tending to her over the last few months, trying to keep her comfortable, trying to take care of her as we figure out what was wrong with her. And last week, I got the unfortunate news that she had a cancerous tumor on her abdomen. And that was basically the culmination of everything that had been going on with her. Although, her blood work and everything looked well, we were really going off of her behavior and a drastic change in her behavior since May. So I got that unfortunate news, and it's the news that no fur baby parent wants to hear. And it was shocking to me, and it was devastating, and I was in denial, and I think I went through all the grief stages, and I recently had to say goodbye to her. And I've had her for 16 years. I've got her when she was 5 months old, and she has been like my baby for all of that time. And I didn't realize how much I was attached to her. I didn't realize how much she meant to me. I didn't realize how much she had been integrated into my life in every sense of the word, from all the relationships I've had to all the different jobs, all the different things I've done, several moves. She's been right there with me. And it's a long, crazy story how I even ended up with her to begin with, because I didn't consider myself a cat person at all. So how I even ended up with a cat is another story for another day. But she has been my baby, and I'm making peace with saying goodbye to her. And I wanted to come on today because this is something that I'm dealing with in real time. And I talk a lot on the podcast about, making this podcast real, relatable, being transparent, and being vulnerable. And I wanted to share this story because, one, it's what I'm dealing with right now. And two, because I'm navigating this grief and loss, and it's teaching me a lot about myself. And I'm learning so much about myself that I want to share with you in a way that can really support you if you find yourself navigating a circumstance or a situation or experience that's less than ideal. We all know that life happens and there are things that are just outside of our control. And that's just a part of life. But that doesn't necessarily make it any easier when those times come, right? And I've learned that firsthand that, we know that unfortunate circumstances and things happen. It doesn't make it any easier when it's happening. So I am recording this podcast episode. I have some notes here, but I didn't do what I normally do, which is really, write everything out and think about what I want to say and get it all organized. But it was really on my heart today and in my spirit to really drop in today because I haven't been able to do an episode in a few weeks and I'm feeling better, better with everything. And I think this episode is really going to support you in helping you to navigate challenging circumstances or difficult circumstances in a way that really is going to help you find more peace. And I'm going to share with you what my beautiful reflections have been over the last few months, taking care of my sick cat and even saying goodbye to her, what I've learned and what it taught me and what I had to choose to support me. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is that this hasn't been easy for me in any sense of the word, and I'm surprised that I'm able to talk about it right now. But if I get a little emotional, just bear with me. But I really think that this episode is going to be very helpful for you today. So I want to say that the first thing that came up for me when I saw her health declining, I knew something was wrong, but we got the diagnosis. It's the first thing that came up for me was, man, what more could I have done? I found myself, really questioning my decisions and questioning what I had been to her. And towards the end, I found myself really holding on to her because I wasn't ready to let her go. And I didn't want to know what it felt like to not have her around. Like I said, she's been such a huge part of my life for the last 16 years. And I was afraid of what it would be like to not have her around. But the truth was that, she's been suffering since May. Her symptoms started back in March, but she's been suffering since May. And I've watched her go from a playful, happy cat to just a very sedentary, sleepy, not much action cat. And I've watched her eyes change from being happy and excited to sad and not really understanding what's going on. But I know she knew something was wrong. And I learned that, cats have this thing, what they do in the wild is really, they have to maintain this sense of they're okay, for their prey so that they can live and survive, not for their prey, but so that they can live and survive. And so what I learned is that, how she acts sometimes was quite deceptive because I would get a false sense of hope because I would see little indications of her old self. When I came down to feed her, and she was meowing or making noises like she was happy, like she would normally do when I'm bringing her favorite food, and things like that were reminders. And it was like a false sense of hope because I was thinking to myself, well, maybe she's getting better or maybe she's feeling better. But the truth was that she was heavily sedated on pain meds and things like that. So I watched these things and it sometimes gave me a false sense of hope. But I was really holding on to her. And I realized that, I had to be okay with letting her go. I didn't want her to suffer any longer. The situation got really bad in the end. She started bleeding from her abdomen. Because of the tumor that was pressing against her abdomen, the blood vessels had burst. And so it was causing her to bleed. And there was nothing they could do about the bleeding. And it turned into an open wound area. So she had to wear a cone, to keep her from licking the area and to prevent it from getting infected in hopes that it would heal. But at the point that it had got to with the tumor still growing, it wasn't going to heal. So she was bleeding and had been bleeding for a while. And I could tell that it was making her very lethargic. And it was not easy to see the blood and to know that the doctors couldn't do anything and there was nothing that I could do but keep her comfortable. And so I had to make a decision and I had to not be selfish and I had to think about her and her health and what was best for her. And thank God I have the support of friends, family, and loved ones who really helped me to put this all into perspective. And I had to take myself out of it and put myself in her shoes and think she's a cat. She's supposed to clean herself and bathe herself. And she hasn't been able to do that in over a month. And I can't imagine going more than a day without being able to clean myself. And I can only imagine what that must have felt like to her to have to, smell herself and not be able to clean herself. And then, towards the end, she could not control her bladder. So, she was urinating on herself. And unfortunately, I couldn't clean her or give her a bath just because of the open wounds on her abdomen and all those things. So long story short was I had to really take myself out of the picture and think about her And I think this was a very important lesson for me in learning how to navigate grief and loss. In all of this, I found myself really noticing all of the thoughts and all of the feelings that were coming up. And I think that's like one of the most important things that we can do as we deal with difficult circumstances is just to notice. Notice what's coming up for us. Notice the thoughts and notice the feelings. And with that awareness, we can choose what we need that's going to support us. So for myself, I noticed the negative thoughts. I noticed the questioning. I noticed the doubting. And I noticed that I was really, trying to hold on and I didn't want to let go. And with that awareness, I was able to choose what would support me, which was, thinking positively, reflecting so that I can put it into perspective so I could think about what was the next best decision and what I needed to do. And the last thing was, I heard this from Natalie McNeil, is I just had to give myself lots of space and grace and lots of space to just feel what was coming up, to deal with it and to navigate it day by day. So when I think about this and I think about, the reflection and what I learned and what I'm taking away with that grace and space is just having grace and compassion for myself. I am that cat person. Never thought I would say that and never thought I would be, but I had to allow myself grace and compassion and really trust myself that I was making the best decision. Trust that I had been a good pet mom to my fur baby and trust that I had done my best to do what I could do. And when it came to making a decision, I heard one of my coaches say that decisions are made from your heart. And this just resonated so much with me because I know how much I stay in my head about things. And I know how much I overanalyze and think about things and rationalize and look for the logic and all that stuff. But I heard her say this and it just reminded me of the importance of really dropping into your heart. And it's something that I've been really leaning into over the last few months, like getting out of my head and trying to make space to drop into the heart and let my heart guide me. And this couldn't have been more perfect timing for me to hear her say that because I really had to listen to my heart in this situation. I really had to listen to what my heart was telling me, and I had to really get beyond my head because my head was causing me to think all these crazy things and to go down this path of, being hard on myself and making it about me and, all the things that we typically do. So I really had to lean in on trusting my heart. And also I had to allow myself to just feel the emotions as they came and just sit with them, not trying to avoid them, not trying to make sense of them, but just letting them be what they were and just being with the emotions. I know sometimes I have a tendency to try to avoid like the not feeling good or try to avoid the emotions or things that make me or cause me to feel not good. But in this situation, I had to lean on just letting the emotions be what they were. And it was a roller coaster. It's hard to watch your baby decline. It's hard to watch them go down that path. And I had to navigate the tears as they came and the sadness and just the heaviness and just allow it to be and give myself space to just be with that. And that meant for me, really stepping back from a lot of the things that I was doing and wanted to do and just, saying, it's okay. I can always get back to it. But choosing what was more important to me in the moment was taking care of my baby and nurturing her and making her feel good, in her final moments and final days. And the other thing I really had to lean on was just gratitude. I really had to continuously shift into gratitude. And I know we say this all the time, but I feel like navigating with the grief and this loss has really made this so clear to me on how important it is. It's the only thing that really allowed me to really make peace with everything and really think about I've had her for 16 beautiful years and I've been thinking about what she gave me. She gave me so much joy and so many memorable moments that will forever be in my heart, moments that have been captured in my pictures and my videos and moments that have caused me lots of laughs and moments that I've shared with others. So she's touched other people's lives as well. And also what she taught me. She really taught me unconditional love because I would just take care of her and nurture her. And I just did it without questioning, without asking, without wanting anything in return, just because I just loved her so much and she meant that much to me. There was nothing that she could do that would cause me to stop wanting to take care of her and wanting to be a good mom to her. And I think this was just such a lesson in unconditional love. And she taught me that, she taught me to really that you can love something or someone, and it doesn't have to be with a whole bunch of stipulations around it. You don't have to make provisions for it. You can just make the choice just to love at any time and at any moment. And also, like I mentioned earlier, I'm so grateful for the support of friends, family, and loved ones. I don't think I could have done this alone. And I'm happy to have people that I can call and who made time for me to talk to me, who have been in these shoes before and offered me some real good advice, because I'm telling you, I didn't know what to do. It was a diagnosis that I didn't expect and didn't want to hear. And I was lost as to what to do. And talking to them and, first just admitting to them, and being vulnerable with them and letting them know what I was dealing with and how I was feeling. And I didn't know what to do, and letting them support me and help me. So the gratitude is just there for all of my friends, family, and loved ones who were there and who have been there through this whole ordeal. It has meant the world to me. So in hindsight, when we think about the beautiful reflection and when we think about navigating difficult circumstances, of course, in the midst of things like death, it's really hard to see the beauty in it. It's really hard to see, the other side of it. But in hindsight, once we go through the grief journey and once we have been down that path, we can start to really see what the beautiful reflection was, or what life was really offering us. Again, at the time, it's far from beautiful. It doesn't feel beautiful. It doesn't feel good. It hurts. It's painful. We don't want it. We don't want to deal with it. But I have to say that, the death and the loss of her has given me some beautiful reflections that I want to share with you in a way that will maybe support you as you think about navigating your own difficult circumstances. And the first one is that, I like to think that, there's a better place, that there's life after death, and they say that all dogs go to heaven, but I like to think that all cats go to heaven too, or that she'll be back in another life. So that has been a beautiful reflection, is that, she's gone on to a better place. I don't know how it works, in the difference between animals and humans, but I have to believe that, they go on to something better, another life, another journey or something. The other beautiful reflection has been when I think about passing and funerals and things like that. Funerals are not my favorite thing by any means. I don't think anyone enjoys going to a funeral. But I think that one thing I can say about funerals is that it's a moment to remember, and it's a moment to celebrate the life of a loved one or a pet or anything that had value to you. And so when I think about saying goodbye to her and having a little goodbye ceremony or not a funeral, but a goodbye ceremony for a pet, it allows me to reflect. I reflect on the fact that now I can celebrate her life. I can celebrate the years that I had with her, and I can celebrate her. And a funeral is an opportunity to do that. When I think of the funerals that I've been to, like my granddad and my grandma, and it was so sad and I was so hurt and so devastated. I also think about how you go to church and the pastor does a wonderful sermon and just gets you to thinking about the life of the person. And you hear all about, everyone comes up and talks about how instrumental they were in their lives, how they impacted them, how they changed their lives, the type of person they are. And there's beauty in that to me. There was so much beauty in that when I went to my granddad's funeral and hearing everyone talk about his character and the type of person that he was. And it inspired me to want to have that type of legacy so that when I'm gone, people remember the type of person I was and my character. So although funerals are sad and, it's a time to say goodbye, on the flip side, it's also an opportunity to celebrate the life and to remember the life of a person. So in saying goodbye to my cat, it was an opportunity for me to celebrate her life and the good life that she lived. She had a good life. She's 80 years old if you do the math, cat to human years. And I'm like, wow, 80 years old, that's a pretty good life. And the other reflection would be that it allowed me to put into perspective the value of today, now, and the present moment. And I think so often we take for granted time, but time is always moving. Time is always going into the future. Wait, is it future or past? Time is always going into the future. Time is always moving is my point. So it's important for us to just be in the present moment and to appreciate the time that we have now. And I think when you lose someone or something, a pet or a loved one, it makes you reflective of the time that you had together. And likely you always wish for more time. You always wish you had another moment with them, or something you could say with them, or something you could do with them. And for me, it put the perspective of the value of time back into the forefront of my mind, meaning that I want to take advantage of every moment that I have with all of my loved ones and all of the people that mean something to me. I want to take advantage of those moments because tomorrow isn't promised and I don't know if they'll be here tomorrow. And so when I think about my cat, it's like, man, I'm appreciative of all the moments, but man, I wish I just would have had more time with her, so it makes me more appreciative of the time that I still do have with my loved ones and my family and my friends. So those have been a few of the reflections that, I've been thinking about and reflecting on as I've been navigating dealing with the grief and loss of, saying goodbye to her. And overall, I can say that, it's been a roller coaster of a journey, but I'm thankful for the awareness that I have around it. And I'm thankful that I can still have a positive attitude about it. This time, I'm thankful that I'm just allowing myself to feel, because I can say that hasn't been something that's always been easy for me. Like, I can definitely say in the past, I've avoided like the feeling of the feels, feeling the bad feelings and things like that, to the point of just not really dealing with it. Like moving on quickly, like busying myself with things, busying myself with things to do so that I don't have to think about it, so that I don't have to feel. But I'm proud of myself for just allowing myself just to feel and just to be with the emotions as they come. I spent most of yesterday crying and thinking about her. And I'm okay with that, and in the past, I would have avoided crying, and avoided like showing weaknesses and showing signs of not being good. And the reality of it is just that I wasn't, and I was okay with that. So I share all of this with you to say that, as we navigate difficult and challenging circumstances, it's important for us to, use reflection, which we talk about a lot on the podcast, use reflection as a way that's going to help you to gain a better perspective so that you can make a shift into, peace and joy. And also recognizing that, you can ebb and flow with it, not forcing yourself in any of it, but just flowing with it, flowing with the feelings, flowing with the emotions, but also using the awareness for the better perspective that's going to help you and support you on the journey. And that has been so key for me, just using the awareness of what I'm thinking, my thoughts, my feelings, and all that stuff to really support me in getting through this and navigating it. So I hope that you found this episode helpful. I hope that it got you thinking about your current situation or current circumstance, which may be difficult for you, or you may be having problems navigating. Really thinking about, how you can have grace and compassion with yourself during this, and really how you can trust yourself more, how you can lean into your heart and get out of your head, and how you can just allow yourself to feel what's coming up and not trying to change it or to avoid it, but just feel what's coming up, and how you can use gratitude as a way to shift, shifting into gratitude as a way to allow you to be thankful for what is present. And also just thinking about, what is life trying to show you? What could life be offering, or what could life be trying to teach you as you work to navigate a difficult circumstance? So I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I'm excited about getting back on the podcast producing wagon, and I have a bunch of great interviews coming up in the coming weeks. And I also have a continuation of our Thrive series. So I hope that you stay tuned, and I'll be talking to you again soon. Thank you for listening to the podcast. I hope that you're reflecting on your own journey and how you can apply my reflections to a difficult circumstance that you may be navigating. Think about your thoughts and feelings about the situation. Use that awareness to help you choose what's going to support you in the moment and decide what giving yourself more space and grace would look like. Grief and loss is never an easy process, and there's no rule book. But we can always use self-reflection as a way to help us navigate and understand so that we can ultimately find peace and move forward. If you're ready to get started on your self-reflection journey, use the link in the show notes to download my 7-day self-reflection guide. Give yourself the clarity, courage, and confidence to move forward into greater purpose and vision. I'd love to hear from you. Connect with me on Instagram and LinkedIn at Katherine N Johnson. use the hashtags Katherine N Johnson and Beautiful Reflections Podcast on Instagram and share with me your key takeaways. If you're enjoying the podcast, show me some love and support by leaving a rating and a review and share the podcast with someone you know. Until next time.